Hey, how do you feel about some high rarity cards, or maybe some foreign ones, or maybe be ahead of the game with others by preparing for future set releases with very quick shipping? Check out EJ Gaming and use code British5 on checkout for 5% off on all your orders. Link in the description.
Greetings, duelists, and welcome to another video. So, what I'm showing you here on the screen is a copy of Visa Samsara, and you're probably wondering, is this a Vanadium deck? Is this like a the Scareclaw deck? Is this a deck that involves visas in general? And you might be partially correct. This is a visas deck or a visa centric strategy. However, is probably one that you're not going to be familiar with unless you have been tuning in on this channel, because I have showcased this in the past. And this is basically a new spin, or like a spin to Tearlaments. As you guys already know, both Agido and Kelbek have been secured for being in the forbidden list for January 1st, meaning that those two cards are no longer legal in the Tearlaments strategy or in any strategy at all. And most likely, a lot of people are probably thinking, is Tearlaments still viable despite the two losses? And I'm going to be inclined to say, more than truthfully, I think that is the case. What I'm gonna show you right now is a combo that involves like Visa Samsara, and after that I'm going to show you the rest of the deck and the strategy and give you an idea of what I have been working with. But yeah, without further ado, let's begin. So we're going to grab Visa Samsara, we're going to link it away, and the monster we're linking into is Scareclaw Lightheart. Scareclaw Lightheart's effect is going to trigger, and with Lightheart we're going to grab the primeval planet, or the primitive planet rather, Rayphobia. We're going to activate the Rayphobia. If you have glanced over the deck, you probably already see a few of the text that are in here. That being said, we're going to grab us Scareclaw Reichhardt, and we're going to special Reichhardt. Reichhardt effect is going to add us to your hand, and we're going to add Scareclaw Arrival. After that, we're going to activate said Scareclaw Arrival. Visa Samsara is treated as Visa Starfrost while it's in the graveyard, so we are going to special summon it. And now we're going to synchro these two away, and their synchro of choice is going to be Diabolantis, the Menacing Mantis. We're going to use Mantis effect. It's going to send an insect monster to the graveyard, and the insect monster that we're going to send is Fusion Parasite. So what's the function of this combo? So with Fusion Parasite, you have the ability to summon both Kalos and Grapha from your extra deck without relying on King of the Swamp. Uh, these two fusion monsters are really powerful, and they could dictate how your Tearlaments strategy is going to be performing. However, in the past, a lot of people have been running King of the Swamp, and King of the Swamp has its merits. Like, being used as a specific material is really, really strong. But without Kalos in the game, and without activating or using the Tearlaments Perlugia, which is the Tearlaments themed field spell besides the Primeval Planet, there's no real way of tutoring King of the Swamp outside of RNG, meaning that you're risking the consistency of your deck or your strategy in order to like fulfill the summon for these two monsters. So with Fusion Parasite, you pretty much have an access to those two monsters from your extra deck just by the merit of a monster that is in their extra deck, meaning that you don't have to run as many bricks in this strategy. Now that we're here at this point where there's Lightheart and Menacing Mantis, there are two different lines that you can perform in this combo. I'm going to show you line number one. Line number one would be to link these two away into cross sheep. And you're probably familiar with this part right now. This is something Vanadium is famous for doing. We're going to banish these two, and we're going to summon Vicious Astrolabe. And then cross ship triggers because Vicious Astrolabe is summoned at the zone it points to. And the monster we're going to special summon is the Fusion Parasite. And Fusion Parasite has the effect that reads, if this card is special summoned, you can fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters you control as material. So what does this mean? Basically, you can use the Parasite and fuse the Parasite and the Astrolabe in order to make either Grapha or Dragostapelia. You have the option to summon either one of these two using making this combo. So what are the upsides and downsides? An upside to this combo is you do have a very specific way of getting to any of these monsters. The downside would be that you're not using Parasite the most optimal way, which is to summon Kalos because it is part of the Tearlaments monsters. But still having the option for Grapha and the option for Dragostapelia is still strong enough. Now we're going to showcase you combo number 2. So all these go back. We're going to put back the Astrolabe and the Mantis. And instead of making cross sheep, you keep the Mantis on board and you special summon the Astrolabe. And what you're going to do is you're going to overlay these because they're both level 8. And we're going to summon the Zombie Vampire. And with this line, you have a guaranteed way to mill 4 cards from the top of your deck. However, this is not going to guarantee you any fusion summon by any means. It's still like very RNG as far as things go. But just for the explanation, we're going to see what we end up milling. We end up milling both Merly and we ended up milling Sharon, meaning that at the end of the day, we got to both Grapha and Dragostapelia if we so wish. So we're just gonna put these at the bottom. This goes to the extra, this goes to the bottom. And something cool about this combo is that your Astrolabe is going back to your graveyard, meaning that Visa Samsara can be used in a later turn alongside Rhinoheart or another copy of Visa Starfrost in order to just resummon back Astrolabe. That being said, we're just going to make Kalos and we're going to make Dragostapelia here. Like I said, this is specifically very RNG. You're not going to be guaranteed anything into the mill aspect. Now that we see this card right here, I think it's time to talk about this card. So your eyes are not deceiving you. This is in fact Needlebug Nest, and if you read the effect of a Needlebug Nest, it's pretty much just send the top 5 cards from your deck to your graveyard. So essentially, this is just another copy of Agido or Kelbek, but it's in the form of a trap card instead of a monster. So it being a trap card means it's a little bit slow. So unless you are going first, you don't have real ways of tutoring this card. Um, Without it being used in other means. You pretty much just have to set it for turn and you just flip it on your opponent's turn. However, there is one thing that we can do in order to facilitate the use of Needlebug Nest or outright even abuse it. And the card that we're going to talk about and is part of this equation is Transaction Rollback. So we've already made a video on this channel talking about Transaction Rollback and its implication for the future of trap jet decks in general. I did mention that a deck that can mill cards such as Tearlaments is a really good option for like this sort of strategy. In Tearlaments as a whole, having the access for stuff like Needlebug Nest like immediately warrants the use of Transaction Rollback and vice versa. And the really cool part about all this is if you end up just activating Needlebug Nest like on the board, you're facilitating like the mills for Rollback or other copies of Needlebug Nest. But there are other cool cards that we can use with Transaction Rollback if it ends up being in the graveyard. One of them is Tearlaments Meta Noise. Tearlaments Meta Noise is an unthemed trap card. You can search it via the effect of Tearlaments Scream, and you can send it to a graveyard with Kaleido Heart, meaning that you're pretty much going to facilitate its graveyard effect. However, if you end up milling this alongside Transaction Rollback or Transaction Rollback is already in your graveyard, essentially what you have is a graveyard access to Meta Noise. And that's really strong because it basically makes it so your opponent is forced to play around what's in your graveyard. If they don't have cards that can get rid of your graveyard efficiently, you can just flip Transaction Rollback at any point and just pay half your life points in order to copy the effect of Meta Noise. And that's pretty much a really strong blowout against your opponent because not only are you sending their monster, but you're also sending a Tearlaments monster in order to facilitate the summon of your more oppressive boss monsters. The last card that we have here in this list, at least, is a Derma Karma Cannon. We're not gonna talk about Trivic Karma with Rollback because the only effect that we care about Trivic Karma is the graveyard effect to tutor out your field spells and your other Visas cards. So what we're going to do is focus on the Derma Karma Cannon. This is a really strong trap for you to utilize with Transaction Rollback. Basically, just having the ability to just set all your opponent's monsters while this trap is in your graveyard, meaning that they cannot interact it with stuff like Cosmic Cyclone or Harpy's Feather Duster. Just to name one or two examples, you don't have to worry about Lightning Storm when you're trying to do this. And the best part is that is off of the effect of a trap card and not the effect of a monster. So you're also not falling victim to triple tactic talents if that ends up being the case. But yeah, this is like the other tools that I'm testing and utilizing towards Tearlaments at the moment. So we are still playing the shufflers. Well, at least I'm playing one of the shufflers in the main deck, the other one's in the side deck. Despite not having the millers anymore, I think the shufflers are still very strong. They still interact with the primeval planet Perlorino. It also is just graveyard disruption against your opponent, which I think is going to be very, very key this format, between Fire Kings, Labyrinth, uh, the Tearlaments Mirror Match, Rika, Sun Avalon, because that deck is still very strong, despite its limitation of healer and Dryas. Mark my words. Rescue Ace is probably going to like dabble with the graveyard very soon, like post Phantom Nightmare. Uh, the Goblin Rider archetype is another strategy that's debuting in Phantom Nightmare. That's also very graveyard centric. But without going into many details, I think the shufflers are still alright. You are playing engine requirements in your deck, like for example the Scareclaw Arrival and the Reichheart, just and the Rayphobia, just to name a few examples. So just having access to a card that can just put them back into your deck and just roll into your engine is very very ideal and pretty much justified. But yeah, like this is pretty much like my spin for Tearlaments. I think Tearlaments as a whole is still like a very very strong concept. I am playing the Danger Monsters as well. The Danger Monsters just pretty much just facilitates like your trap cards and your tier monsters and anything you need in your graveyard. You can pretty much just swap it between other engines. You can play Horus cards if you want to, which actually naturally synergizes with this deck because you are already running Vampire, the Zombie Vampire. You can also pair it uh, like just playing a pure with other Visas cards. You can play like the Rescue Ace engine with Impulse and Fire Attacker. Like pretty much your world is your oyster with Tearlaments. I think despite the hits from the Millers, Tearlaments is in a way better spot in the TCG than in the OCG. In the OCG, Primeval Planet, Tearlaments Kashtira, and Rhino Heart are all limited, meaning that the strategy is just pretty much like dead in the water unless it's played as a hybrid for another strategy. But yeah, like this is pretty much like theory. Like here's the extra deck. It's kind of tight. The Tearlaments extra deck is not known for being like very flexible. There's a lot of key cards that you kind of want to play in this deck. Like for example, in this version, you have to play Astrolaud. Bear on the Floor is a monster you can easily make in this version because you are running Visa Starfrost, and you do play other level 6s like Garura. Speaking of Garura I think is kind of necessary. You have multiple Aquas, like counting Danger Nessie. Kaleido Heart is easier to summon in this version than usual, mainly because of Danger Nessie. You have to play Redo, you have to play SP, you have to play like the Sprite Sprint. This is all standard Tearlaments stuff for at the moment. The things that are probably not standard are like Baron, Mantis, Vampire, and Lightheart. Uh, but outside of that, it's pretty much the tightest aesthetic that I have made as of late. But yeah, uh, that's pretty much it from this explanation. Uh, if you are interested, I can show you sample duels or duels that I had like with new format testing as well as Phantom Nightmare with this strategy. Feel free to comment in the video and let me know if you are interested in that being future content. Despite all that, I think I will like have a couple of duels ready, like periodically or in the future, involving like the performance of this strategy as well as other strategies under the new forbidden limited list in January. All right, that's it from me. uh, I'll stop rambling. Keep practicing and keep dueling.